The version of you that I don't think you fully see when you look at yourself. Because we are always the last ones to see ourselves clearly. We are always the ones looking in the wrong direction, when the most important thing about us is visible. But I was looking in the right direction, and I saw something so honest, so unexpectedly beautiful, so quietly extraordinary, that I had to stop whatever I was doing and just be still for a moment. Just let it land. Just let the reality of what I was seeing actually register in me, without rushing past it. Do you want to know what I saw? I'm going to tell you, but I need you to understand first that I'm not telling you this to flatter you. Not telling you this because I think it's what you want to hear. I'm telling you because it's what happened. Because it was real. Because it is still with me days later in a way that tells me it's going to stay with me for a very long time. Maybe always. Some things you see and then forget. Some things you see and they become part of how you understand the world from that point forward. What I saw when I saw you, really saw you, was the second kind. I saw the way you love things. And I know that sounds simple, but it was the furthest thing from simple. It was one of the most complex and layered and moving things I have ever witnessed in another person. The way you love things is not casual. It is not surface level. It is not the kind of love that sits comfortably at a distance and admires without getting involved. Your love gets involved. It leans in. It reaches. It gives itself over to whatever it has decided to care about with this full, unguarded, completely sincere generosity that stopped me completely. I watched you care about something, really care. And it was like watching someone be entirely, perfectly themselves. No performance, no filter, just pure genuine feeling, moving through you like it owned the space. And it does own the space. That's what I want to tell you. When you feel something, it fills the room. Not in a loud or overwhelming way, in the way that warmth fills a room. Gradually, quietly, until everything in it has changed temperature and you can't imagine how cold it was before. That's what your caring does. That's what it did to me when I was watching without meaning to watch. When I was seeing without knowing yet what I was seeing. You warmed something, you warmed it without knowing you were doing it. Without trying, without even turning in my direction. You were just being you, just loving the way you love. And I was standing there feeling something shift in my chest in the most irreversible way. Now here is where I need to ask you, and I'm genuinely asking, I need you to tell me honestly, will you be upset that I saw that? Will you be upset that I witnessed something so unguarded, so private, so completely unperformed? Because I know you, I know enough about you to know that you are careful about what you let show. I know that you have learned, the way careful people learn, to keep certain things close, to let the world see what you choose to show it, and guard the rest with a quiet, practiced discipline. And I wasn't supposed to see past that. I stumbled past it by accident, or by grace, or by some combination of the two that I don't fully understand. And now I'm holding something that wasn't meant for me, and I need to know if that's okay. I need to know if you can forgive me for seeing you. Because I would understand if there was a part of you that wanted to take it back, that wanted to reach into the moment, and close the curtain, restore the careful distance, put back up whatever barrier I managed to slip past. I would understand that impulse completely. But I also want to tell you, and please hear this, that what I saw made me think more of you, not less. Not in a way that made me feel like I had found something flawed, or something you should have kept hidden. Exactly the opposite. What I saw made me realize that the version of you the world gets, as wonderful as it is, as warm and real as it already is only a fraction, is only the beginning. And that there is so much more of you underneath that is even more extraordinary than the part you share freely. That's what I saw. I saw the depth of you. And I don't use that word carelessly, because I think it gets used carelessly all the time. People say deep, and they mean complicated, or they mean sad, or they mean difficult to understand. That's not what I mean. I mean deep, the way water is deep. Where the surface is already beautiful, and already real, and already worth looking at. But underneath the surface there are entire worlds, entire ecosystems of feeling, and thought, and meaning, that most people never get close enough to see. I got close enough. I don't know how, I don't know exactly when the distance closed. But I got close enough to feel the depth of you. And it is immense. It is genuinely immense. And I have been standing at the edge of it ever since, just looking in, slightly in awe. I want to tell you what it did to me. When I saw that, when I felt that depth, something in me recognized it. Like a frequency that my body had been tuned to, without my knowledge, suddenly finding its match. Like I had been carrying around this specific feeling, this specific capacity, without knowing what it was for. And then I saw you in that unguarded moment. And something in me said, quietly and with complete authority, that's what it was for. That's the thing. That's the person. And I stood very still and let that understanding move through me. And I did not try to argue with it or rationalize it or talk myself out of it. Because some things you simply don't argue with. Some things arrive with such clarity that arguing would just be dishonest. And I am done being dishonest when it comes to you. There is something else I saw. Something that is harder to describe, but that I have to try. Because leaving it out would be leaving out one of the most important parts. I saw your tenderness, and I want to be specific about this, because tenderness is one of those things that gets confused with weakness. And what I saw was anything but weakness. What I saw was a person who has the strength to stay soft, the strength to keep feeling in a world that constantly pressures people to stop, the strength to look at something fragile and treat it with gentleness instead of impatience. That takes more courage than most things I can think of. Staying tender when the world has given you reasons not to be, that is one of the bravest choices a person can make. And I watched you make it, naturally, without thinking about it, without patting yourself on the back for it. And I fell a little more, right there, watching that. I fell a little more into this thing I'm already so deep in that falling further barely feels like a direction anymore. It just feels like where I live now. In this feeling, in this truth, in this ongoing daily reality of being someone who is completely, helplessly, wonderfully affected by you. Will you be upset that I'm telling you this? That's the other question I keep turning over. Because there is the question of whether you'll be upset that I saw. And then there is the separate, equally vulnerable question of whether you'll be upset that I'm saying this out loud, that I'm bringing it out of the private space I've been keeping it in, and placing it directly in front of you, where you have to do something with it, where you have to feel something about it, where you can't just let it exist quietly in the background of things. Because I've made it foreground. I've made it unavoidable. And I'm doing that on purpose. Because I think you deserve things to be unavoidable when they're true. I think you deserve honesty that doesn't hide itself. I think about you seeing this, and I think about all the possible ways you might receive it. And there's one that I'm afraid of. Not upset, afraid isn't even quite right. But there is one response that would settle heavily in me. It's the one where you read all of this and you feel something but you talk yourself out of it. Where the feeling arrives and you meet it briefly and then you step back and put distance between yourself and it. Because something in you has been trained to step back from things that feel this real. Because real things have hurt before, and the body remembers hurt even when the mind tries to move past it. I understand that. I understand it in the way that only someone who has done the same thing can understand it. I have stepped back from real things before. I have felt something genuine arriving, and let fear make me cautious when I should have been open, and I regretted it. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, in the way you regret the things you didn't do. In the way absence sits differently than loss. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to step back from this, and then carry the quiet regret of it. I want you to stay. I want you to let this be real without flinching away from how real it is. Because what I saw in you is not something that comes along often. What I saw is not something I am going to find somewhere else if I just keep looking. I know that with the particular certainty of someone who has looked, someone who has paid attention, someone who has measured enough versions of real against enough versions of almost real to know, without any doubt, the difference between the two. And you, what you are, what I saw in you in that unguarded moment, is not almost real. It is the realist thing. It is the standard by which I now measure everything else, and everything else has already started coming up short. So I want to ask you one more time, softly, without pressure, just with complete honesty and a heart that is wide open, in a way it hasn't been in longer than I want to admit. Will you be upset? Will you be upset that I saw you, that I really truly saw you? Because if you are, I want to know. And if you're not, if somewhere inside you, there is a part that is quietly, secretly glad that someone finally looked closely enough to see what's actually there, then I want to know that too. I want to know everything you're willing to tell me. I want to be the person you can tell it to. And I'm right here, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just waiting. Patiently, honestly, with everything in me, pointed in your direction, like a compass that has finally found its north, and no longer has any interest in pointing anywhere else. And I think that's what I want you to understand most. Not just that I feel this, but that I am not conflicted about it. I am not half in and half out. I am not standing at the edge, with one foot forward and one foot ready to retreat. I am fully here, completely here, in a way that I don't think I have been fully anywhere in a very long time. And you did that. You and what I saw in you, and the way it landed in me and refused to leave, you brought me all the way here, to this place of complete, unambiguous presence. And I am grateful for it, even when it terrifies me a little. Even when the fullness of it is almost too much to hold, because it is almost too much sometimes. I want to be honest about that. I want to tell you that this does not feel small, or manageable, or neatly contained. It feels enormous. It feels like something that has quietly taken up every available space inside me, without asking, without apologizing, without leaving room for the careful distance I used to maintain. And the strange thing, the thing that surprises me even now, is that I don't miss that distance. I thought I would. I thought that when something finally broke through the walls I had carefully built, I would feel exposed and uncomfortable and want to reconstruct everything immediately. But I don't. What I feel instead is something closer to relief, something closer to finally, like a long-held breath that I didn't even know I was holding, has finally slowly been released. You released something in me, and I keep circling back to that because I think it's important. I think it's one of the most important things I can tell you about what you mean to me, and what seeing you, really seeing you, has done to my interior world. Before you, I was careful. Before that moment, before I caught you unguarded, and saw the depth of you, and the tenderness of you, and the way your love fills every room it enters. Before all of that, I had systems, quiet, practiced systems for managing how much I let in, and how much I let show, and how close I allowed things to actually get. Before I created distance, I had become very good at those systems. So good that I sometimes mistook them for peace. I sometimes looked at the absence of vulnerability and called it contentment. Because contentment is easier to admit to than loneliness. Contentment sounds chosen. Loneliness sounds like something missing. Something was missing. I can say that now. I can say it clearly and without embarrassment. Because what I saw in you gave me the language for it. Gave me the contrast I needed to finally name what had been absent. What was missing was exactly what you have. That openness. That willingness to feel things all the way through, instead of managing them from a distance. That courage to love, without calculating the risk first. I had been calculating for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to just feel something. without immediately asking myself whether it was safe to feel it. And then you showed me, without knowing you were showing me anything, what it looks like when someone just feels, when someone just loves, when someone just exists in full color, instead of the careful muted palette I had been living in. You are full color. That's what I saw. That is the simplest and most complete way I can say it. You are full, vivid, unapologetic color in a world that is constantly asking people to tone themselves down, to be more beige, to be more palatable, to take up less visual space, and you refuse. Not loudly, not defiantly, you just quietly, consistently refuse to be less than you are. And I watched that refusal happening in real time, in that unguarded moment, and something in me that had been slowly going gray just flooded back with color. Just remembered what it was supposed to look like. Just came back to itself in the most sudden and unexpected and welcome way. I want to tell you about the moment after. The moment after I saw you, after it had registered, after I had stood still and let the reality of it move through me. The moment after all of that, when I was alone with what I had just witnessed. Because that moment is important, and I don't think I can tell you what I saw, without also telling you what I did with it. What happened inside me when the seeing was done, and it was just me, and this new knowledge and the quiet of everything settling. I sat with it. That's what I did. I didn't immediately reach for my phone, didn't immediately try to tell someone, didn't immediately try to process it out loud, or seek validation for what I was feeling. I just sat with it in the silence, and let it be exactly as large as it actually was. And it was large. It was the kind of large that feels like landscape, like standing somewhere with an open view that extends further than you can see, where the horizon keeps going even after your eyes run out of range. That's what it felt like inside me. Like suddenly having more interior space than I knew I had. Like the walls had moved outward without warning, and there was all this room that hadn't been there before. Room for you. Room for what you are. Room for whatever this becomes. And I thought about you the entire time I was sitting in that. I thought about whether you knew. Whether you had any sense of what you were carrying around with you. What you were radiating, what you were putting out into the world simply by being exactly who you are. I thought about how impossible it is to see yourself clearly. How the things that are most extraordinary about us are usually the things we are most blind to. Because they are so intrinsic, so woven into the basic fabric of who we are, that they don't feel special to us. They just feel like existing. I thought about how you probably move through your days with no idea of the effect you have. No idea that there are moments when you are simply being yourself, and something in that, some particular quality of your realness, reaches out and touches people in ways they carry home with them, in ways they think about later, in ways they think about for days apparently, in ways a person might sit down and try to put into words. Because leaving it unspoken feels like a waste of something true. I don't want to waste true things anymore. I spent a lot of years being careful about what I said, and what I admitted, and what I let be visible, and I have come to understand that carefulness has a cost. That the things you don't say don't just disappear, they stay inside you and take up space, and sometimes they sour, and sometimes they just sit there quietly, pressing against the inside of you, and reminding you that they were never given where they were supposed to go. And I don't want this to sit inside me and press. I don't want to carry this around unsaid until it becomes a weight. I want to give it to you because it belongs to you. It was always about you. It was always pointing at you. And it deserves to arrive at the place it was always meant to reach. So let me keep telling you. Let me keep going, because I don't think I'm finished yet. I don't think I've said all of it. I think there are still layers of this that I haven't reached, still parts of what I saw, and what it meant that are waiting for me to find the right way in. And I want to find it. I want to go all the way to the bottom of this with you. In the same way I want to go all the way to the bottom of you. All the way to the deepest, most honest, most private part. And just be there. Just be present in it. Just let the depth of you be something I get to know fully rather than something I glimpse and then lose. Can I tell you what I think about when I imagine you on an ordinary day? Not a special day, not an extraordinary circumstance, just Tuesday, just a regular afternoon in your regular life. I think about you moving through it with that particular quality of attention you have. That way of being in a moment that is different from how most people occupy their moments. Most people are half somewhere else. Most people are in the room but thinking about the next room or the last room or some room that doesn't exist yet. But you, I think you are actually there. I think you are the kind of person who actually inhabits the moment they're in, who actually sees what is in front of them, who actually tastes what they're eating, and hears what someone is saying, and feels the temperature of the air and notices the quality of the light. I think you are present in a way that has become rare. And I think that's part of why being around you feels different. Because presence is contagious. Because when someone is actually there, actually in it, it pulls you in too. It reminds you to come back to yourself. You remind me to come back to myself. I don't know if I've ever told you that. I don't know if there's been a way to tell you that until right now. But it's true. When I think about you, when I let myself really go there and feel everything that comes up when I do, something in me gets quieter, gets more settled, gets more like the version of myself that I actually want to be, rather than the performance of myself that the world sometimes gets. And that is not a small thing. That is, in fact, one of the largest things one person can do for another. To simply be the thing that reminds them who they are underneath all the noise. To be someone's way back to themselves. You are that for me. You are my way back. And every time I find my way back, every time I get quiet enough to feel clearly, honest enough to stop performing, still enough to actually hear myself think, you are there. At the center of the stillness. At the heart of the clarity. Like you have always been there, like you were already there before I knew enough to look. Like the truest version of me already knew about you before the rest of me caught up. I want to ask you something personal, and I want you to actually sit with it rather than answering it quickly, because quick answers to real questions are usually just defense mechanisms in disguise. So take your time with this. The question is, when was the last time someone saw you? Not looked at you, not admired you or appreciated you or enjoyed your company, but actually saw you. The whole, layered, complicated, extraordinary, sometimes difficult, always worth it whole of you. When was the last time you felt genuinely, completely witnessed by another person? I ask because I think it might have been a while. I think you are someone who gives that kind of seeing to others generously, freely, almost automatically, but who doesn't always receive it back in equal measure. I think you know what it's like to be in a room full of people and still feel like the most essential parts of you are invisible. I think you know what it's like to be appreciated for the surface of you while the depth of you goes unnoticed, unexplored, unknown. And I think that particular kind of loneliness, the loneliness of being unseen inside a full life, is one of the most specific and aching kinds there is. I see you. I need to say that again because I don't think one saying is enough. I see you. Not the performance of you, not the version you lead with, not the carefully selected parts you allow the world access to. I see the version I caught in that unguarded moment. The full feeling, vivid, deep, tender, brave, extraordinary version. And that is the version I am talking to right now. That is the version I want to keep talking to. That is the version I went looking for words for. Because she deserved words that were worthy of her, and I wanted to be the one to try. I'm still trying. I don't think I've quite gotten there yet. Don't think the words have fully caught up to the feeling. And maybe they never will. Maybe that's just the nature of this particular feeling. That it always stays slightly ahead of language. Always remains just slightly beyond what can be said. But I keep going anyway. I keep reaching for it anyway. Because the reaching itself matters. Because the effort of trying to say the true thing is its own form of love. And I want you to feel loved. I want that above everything. Above being understood, above being impressive, above finding exactly the right words. Above all of it, I just want you to feel what this actually is. What this actually is something I would not trade. Not for comfort, not for convenience, not for the easier version of my life that existed before I saw you clearly and felt everything rearrange itself around that scene. I would not trade this feeling for anything simpler. And I've thought about that. I've thought about whether it would be easier to not feel this, to not have had that moment of seeing, to not be sitting here with my whole chest open, trying to find the language for something that resists language. And the answer is no. The answer is that I would choose this every time. I would choose the fullness of this over the safety of feeling less. I would choose you, the complication of you, the depth of you, the feeling of you, over any simpler, quieter, less overwhelming alternative. Every single time, without hesitation, I would choose the version of my life that has you in it. The version where I know what it feels like to be moved by someone this completely. The version where I have felt the particular quality of your presence settle into me and change the temperature of everything. Because here is what I have learned, and I have learned it slowly and sometimes painfully and always honestly. A life where nothing moves you is not a safe life. It is just an empty one. And I would rather be moved, shaken, rearranged, turned completely inside out by something real, than spend another day in the comfortable numbness of a life where nothing gets close enough to matter. You get close enough to matter. You have always gotten close enough to matter, even before I had the words for it, even before I understood what was happening inside me every time I thought about you. And now that I have seen you, really, truly seen you in that unguarded moment that I keep returning to, because it was the moment everything became clear. Now that I have seen you, going back to not knowing is not an option. Going back to the version of me that hadn't felt this yet is a door that is simply no longer there. And I stand in front of where it used to be, and I feel nothing except grateful. Grateful that it closed. Grateful that there is no retreat available. Grateful that the only direction left is forward toward you, into whatever this beautiful and terrifying and completely real thing is becoming. I want to talk about something that I have been circling without landing on directly, and I think it's time to land on it.